B, it's the beat of CT. I'm your host, Jenny Boom Boom. DJ Meechie, my co-host, is here. What up, Meech?
What's up?
And today we're talking to Rodney Delgado from the Meriden Health Department. How are you doing there, Rodney?
I'm doing all right.
And today he wants to talk all about lead poisoning prevention.
Basically, the one thing I want to make sure, and I say it right off the bat, is lead poisoning is 100% preventable.
Okay.
Kids do not need to get lead. We don't need lead in our bodies. Most of the time, they're getting it by whatever source they get it from. It's all preventable, whether it's painting, whether it's cleaning, whether it's maintaining properties, whether it's wiping down areas. It's 100% preventable. That's the main thing. That's the drive home point for anything when we deal with lead.
Okay.
It's completely preventable.
So, okay, can we just go back a little bit? Because, you know, I was born in the 70s, right? I know it's hard to believe because I have no wrinkles at all, but I was born in the 70s. That's what you're supposed to say. Rodney, you're supposed to say, yeah, that's true. You know, no wrinkles, but thanks.
Listen, I was born in the 70s too, so.
Okay, all right. And you don't have any wrinkles. All right. So, but, you know, you heard a lot growing up about lead paint and how it's really bad for you. So just kind of tell me the history of lead paint.
Well, with lead, they started using lead in the paint. It made the paint durable. It made the paint color pop a little bit more, brighter blues, deeper reds, the whole thing, but more so the durability. And obviously, it's going to be cheaper to mix in there. They've been using it for like, I don't know how long. I have some houses built in 1895 that still have lead in it. But they stopped using the lead paint in about 78.
And why was that?
Because they were finding it was causing issues. It was causing a lot more damage to the environment, damage to the kids, damage to people. So they just stopped using it. I don't have all the research. I don't know exactly the timeline when it was officially banned, but they stopped using it, stopped selling it in 78. You can still kind of find leaded products. I know I can still find lead gasoline, more additives in certain auto parts stores. And I know that they still use lead paint for commercial aspects. Some of the last information I have is they were using it for the outside of boats, to paint boats. So, but for residential use, it's banned. They can't use it.
So I wonder if when they use it for the boats, does that contaminate the water at all?
It should. It should.
Wow.
And like eventually over time, the lead will leach through. So if it's on one layer and you have like 16 different layers of say regular latex paint on it, it eventually will leach through and come out to the very last layer, excuse me.
Okay.
So there's always going to be that potential. There's always going to be that potential.
Wow. So the fact that you're saying that they're still using lead in so many different things to this day in 2020, should we be scared?
Not scared, but just cautious. Just pay attention. That's why prevention is the main thing. Maintaining paint, maintaining areas, understanding what you're using, understanding what you're getting into. Like with that lead, with the gasoline, the only reason why I found out is a child was poisoned, and I looked at the house, did an investigation. There was nothing on the house and the property and the soil, the water, nothing. But I found out that the child goes with the father, and the father races high-performance jet skis.
Oh. So
I started looking at some of the things that he has, and the little daughter would help daddy in the garage. And he had this gasoline, and when I looked it up, it's leaded gasoline. It increases the combustion in the engine, and it fires more, gets more horsepower. So that's how she got it. And then going into talking about the events that he would go to, obviously with his daughter there, every single one of the jet skis in this event we're using the same gasoline. So she's breathing it in. It's all in the air. She came up with a positive result.
Wow. So what were the signs of her being poisoned, by the way, just so, because I have kids, I want to know.
You're not going to tell. You can't tell without a blood test. The only
wow.
way to know for sure that your child or us ourselves, if we're poisoned, is through a blood test. They start out with the capillary for the most part. And if the capillary comes out a little bit more positive, they actually send out for a venous. And this is the only definitive way. I tell my parents, and I tell my parents that the kids I deal with, once you start seeing symptoms, it's already too late.
Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering, like, what were her symptoms that even made her parents get tested?
In Meriden, specifically in Meriden, I don't know about other communities, but to register a child for kindergarten, they have to get a lead test. That's how we found out.
That's how you found out.
Yeah.
Wow.
So once she got the results, once she got tested, I got the results. I went out to the house, and then that's what we figured out. That was the investigation that I did.
So when you go out to these houses and you do these investigations, what are like the main things that you're looking for?
I look at door casings, door jambs, window frames, original fixtures of a house. And I look for anything that's chipping, flaking, deteriorated. If I look at paint chips on the floor, if I see anything that's, they use the term alligator skin texture. So I have a bunch of
when stuff starts to kind of peel and it's kind of, right?
Kind of. Sometimes they have a coat of paint on it, but you're looking at the bumps and ridges of an alligator, the alligator skin. So if you look at the bumps and ridges, more than likely the very first layer has lead in it. I say more than likely because I would have to physically test it to know positive, but more than likely there is. And then when it is flaking and peeling, that's when we start checking the floors, checking where the child plays, where the child spends time, looking at the window. If the child, say, has a window in their bedroom, look for toys on the windowsill, inside the well, just to see if there's anything that potentially could get this child any little bit of that lead in. And it doesn't have to be a big flake. It could be a little bit of dust that the child is playing with, and all of a sudden the child wants a cookie, grabs a cookie without physically washing their hands. That's how the child's going to get lead.
That is so awful.
Yes.
So, I mean, my daughter recently, she went to go rent an apartment, and she's on top, like she's in a two-family home. It's an older home, like older. And she was talking to the person that's renting the apartment to her, and she's going through the lease, and she's asking, like, do you know anything about lead? And the person renting the apartment to her said, I don't know anything about any lead in this house. So do people have to really research that when they're renting out apartments and rooms, or are they supposed to do that? Or are you allowed to just say, I don't know anything about it?
Well, the property owner is allowed to, there's the disclosure that I have and the disclosure that's online basically says, yes, I know that there's lead. No, I know there's no lead, or I don't know. That's the caveat. So if they check off they don't know, they don't know. To know that there's lead, they got to get a test. They got to get a test, and most home inspectors won't test right off the bat. Like that's an extra fee. As a renter or as somebody looking into apartments, you always want to think about that. If the house is built before 78, you have to think about lead. If the house is built before 1950, probably about 95% of the houses built before 1950 have lead.
So I mean, my house is 1962, so I'm probably just in some lead fest right now, Rodney, and didn't even know it.
Not as much as you would expect.
Okay.
If you said 1860, then that'd be a little different. But
1860, that thing's haunted. I ain't not gonna live there, Rodney.
No, but if it's like I live in a house in 1965, and looking around, obviously with what I do, I can tell kind of where I would be worried about. All you have to do is just look around the original fixtures of the house. If you have replacement windows in there, you look at the window casings, the window, the outside of the window. If you have newer doors, look at the door frames. If you have like, you look at your baseboards. If they're original baseboards, you look at to see if you see any chipping or flaking or what's called a history of paint. If you see multiple layers of paint on it, then you know potentially the very first layer has lead in it.
So what do you do if you have that situation happen? Like if you move into a residence and you're like, wow, I probably have lead. I mean, I was always taught you could just paint over the thing and not worry about it.
Right.
And that's exactly what you're gonna do.
Oh, okay. So I did the right thing.
You're gonna paint over it. As long as the paint is intact, as long as the paint's not chipping or flaking, you're all set.
You're okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You wanna look for obviously the chipping, flaking, but you wanna look for friction surfaces. You wanna look for anything that's potentially impact, and then any paint that's not intact. If it's all chipping, 2 coats of paint.
2 coats of paint, and then it's just gone. It's done.
It's not gone. No, it's not gone.
I mean, it's just done. You're not so worried about it anymore.
It's taken care of. Not so much anymore. You gotta think about the lead for as long as you're living there. But once you put that 2 coats of paint on, primer, paint, whatever you want to do, it's intact. You can work with it.
Okay.
If all of a sudden, say it's a door jamb, and the door jamb has a nice coat of paint on it, but eventually, as that door keeps opening and closing, you're gonna get the friction, you're gonna get the impact, you're gonna get some movement. Eventually, that paint will wear down, and anything that wears down potentially has lead.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
So in that case, again, clean the area and more paint.
And more paint. So lead and asbestos are the 2 things you really have to look for when moving into a home, right?
Yeah. I deal specifically with lead. Asbestos, is always going to be a concern.
Right, for older homes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what asbestos is? Because I really don't know. And I feel like having you here on the interview would help me out today.
Oh, I'd have to refer to the Department of Public Health. There is an asbestos program.
Okay.
At PTH. I'm not entirely familiar with asbestos. It's not something I have to investigate. It's not something I have to.
I'm sorry, Rodney, to put you on the spot. I was just curious. Because I feel like we're always talking about lead and asbestos, kind of like hand in hand. And I just really don't know what asbestos is. I have no idea.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, thank you, Rodney. Rodney's like, I work for the Meriden Health Department and I deal in lead, but I'll Google it for you, Jen, if you want.
Anything you want. I'm here to help you out.
Because Meechie, you move around a lot.
Right.
You're like a rolling stone over there.
Mm-hmm.
These are things you have to look out for. To look for lead paint and asbestos.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a mineral that they added to certain fabrics, certain things that's fire resistant, and it's insulating, so it helps out.
Okay. Like one person I know, she found some in her kitchen floor.
Yeah, in the tile.
In the tile.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have to call in a crew. A crew's supposed to come and remove it.
Yes.
You can't just dump it because you can get a lot of trouble for that, and plus it's not good for the environment.
It has to be done specific. There's specific procedures to basically abate the asbestos. Mm-hmm. Kind of like lead. There's specific procedures to abate lead. There's a procedure you have to do to get rid of the asbestos.
So if you wanted to get rid of the lead out of your home, say you just didn't want to paint over it, cover it up, you're like, I'm really concerned about the situation. How do you go about removing lead from your home?
Okay, it depends on the area. Easiest way, physically take it out. If it's a door and the door has lead paint, take the door off the hinges. You wrap the door in 6mm plastic, tape it off, and dispose of it.
Like in the dumpster?
If it's like the regulations allow for under 10 cubic yards of waste can be thrown in the trash, thrown in the dumpster. So if it's like a door, you can just throw it in, but make sure you wrap it. I usually tell people to write lead paint on it, just in case. Make sure that it's as tight as possible with the plastic. Duct tape it up as well so that you can't physically open it easily, and you can dispose of it.
Okay.
If it starts, like say it's a complete remodel of a house, and you start looking at more than 10 cubic yards, then you have to call in a company because it's considered hazardous waste at that point. So you have to get a separate company to come in and dispose of the waste.
That's pretty expensive, right, Rodney?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, it really is. So
And any
he's like, you're pretty much screwed if this happens. So you're.
I don't want to say screwed, but I do want to say you're going to have an investment.
Okay.
Like with most of my property owners, I tell them like, listen, $100 or $200 worth of paint saves a lot of problems. If I have to come back and physically test through the regulations, I have to test the house. That $100 or $200 could go up to $30,000, $40,000.
Wow.
I have one.
Me and Meechie both were like, dang, we don't make that much money. Especially now in the quarantine.
Shoot. Don't get me started. When I first started looking at some of my old cases, I had one house that to replace all of the windows in the house was $37,000 off the bat.
Wow.
To replace the windows. That's not including doors, the labor, any type of anything else. If there's siding, that doesn't include any of that. Wow. So if you're thinking $200 worth of paint and some sweat equity, as opposed to an abatement, like it's a home run all day long. Paint the house, paint it, maintain it.
So, I mean, you keep talking about you go out to these residents. So you're like an investigator?
Yeah.
You're out there investigating this?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get called out? Like, how do you do, like, what's the call like? Why would someone call you? I'm just wondering.
Well, it's usually this situation. I'm more reactive than proactive because proactive will, like, I'll never be in the office.
Plus, you look like Paul Blart if you're like out there, like being proactive, right? Like, what's going on with this lead paint? You know, it's better to be reactive. I feel, right, Meech?
Right.
I'd have to hit 95% of Meriden. I get the results. Any child is supposed to be tested at least 2 times before they turn 2 years old.
Okay.
That's state guidelines. So I get the results, or I have access to the results specifically for lead for any child that tests positive in Meriden.
Okay.
So I have a good rapport with my doctors, a good rapport with the drawing station. So I usually get the results before the state gets it. But once I get the results, I communicate with the family either via phone call or a letter, most of the time a letter, especially now with COVID-19, but with a letter saying, this is the situation, your child came up positive. These are some of the issues that deal with lead, the problems that can arise. And then I offer a site visit. So if they want me to come out to the home, I come out to the home. Obviously now all PP'd out, but I would come into the home, do a visual inspection as well as dust wipes. I have specific dust wipes through the state lab that would test flat surfaces for lead. And I would actually get an actual number. I send that up to the state lab, get the results. But through the visual inspection and through the experience, and obviously with my supervisor just being here, through his experience and through the training that I've gotten from DPH, I know what to look for and I know what to be worried about. So if I see something, if there's chipping, flaking, if there's something that I just don't like, once I communicate with the family, it's my responsibility to communicate with the property owner and get them to touch up the paint.
Right.
Whether it's touch up the paint, I had one property owner decide it's too costly to touch up the paint, so he replaced windows. I had one property owner, he didn't want to touch up the paint on the door, so he just took the door off. But anything like on the list that I provide to them, I have to make sure that those things are addressed in some way.
Right.
And most of the time, 2 coats of paint.
Now, have you been out and like you've been to like one of the sites and just like it was just like a crazy situation? Like you're just like, oh my God, as soon as you walked in, you just
give us the address, Rodney. Give us the address. You want to drive by and see the House of Horror.
Let's put it this way. I've been in some houses that Superman wouldn't be able to look out of because it's all surrounded in lead.
Wow.
I've been I remember one house specifically that I'm looking at the windows and you see paint chips on the floor. You see paint chips in the windowsill. You see the child's high chair next to the window, next to the paint chips. Wow. I see water dripping down off the ceiling because there was a leak. The leak wasn't addressed, so any paint that was involved with that chipped up, flaked up, hit the ground, had lead.
Rodney, were you in there like, get me out of here?
No, I was in there saying,
I can't breathe.
I was in there saying, get that child out of there.
Okay.
I was more worried about that child.
Sorry. I would have been selfish in that situation. Sorry, Rodney. I would have moved the kid out of my way. Get out of my way.
Well, you would know. You're a child of the 70s, like you said. Like, I remember when my parents pumping leaded and unleaded gasoline. I remember drinking out of the hose at the house when I'm playing in the yard. We don't know what was happening with that water over there.
But it made us resilient, Rodney.
Good way to put it, resilient.
We're resilient because of that.
I like that.
No, so this is the most common pediatric public health problem, right?
Probably. There's tons of problems. This is what I like. I just know like I said, it was 100% preventable. Like certain pediatric issues, you can't do anything about it. Whether it's genetics, whether it's X, Y, and Z happening with the family, like lead, 100% preventable. So whether it's one of the top pediatric issues, I guarantee it is, especially because those effects don't get better. If you're having a child that's affected with lead, it starts out with developmental delays, behavioral issues. And
really, that's so crazy.
It is.
And whether there's some research out there linking it to autism, linking it to a bunch of different issues. Wow. So thinking about a hazardous metal going into the body that's not supposed to be there, you're not gonna these kids, they just don't get better.
Wow.
So
that's just so sad.
There's plenty of cases, and if you do a little bit of research, especially with the Flint, Michigan water scandal, there's plenty of cases where you can see, well, this child has this, and this. And there could be a link to lead. There could not be. More than likely there is, but there's no definitive, yes, this is the reason. So.
Wow, that's just so sad.
I just know the extent, like where once kids start showing things, it already affected their brain, already affected their system. Wow. And we're just trying to recover from that.
Right.
Yikes. That is just awful. And especially in this day and age.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, this was the big thing a long time ago. People would talk about all the time, right? But now it's like in 2020, like, I can't believe we're still dealing with this issue.
Yeah. And whether it's homegrown here in the United States or it's foreign products coming from overseas or other countries, guidelines are a little different some other places.
Right.
There's a lot, like here in the United States, we do a lot of recalls, and I would get an updated list of certain toys that are recalled because the paint has lead in it. I have a family where a child tested positive, and they have this one, like my family's from Puerto Rico, so we have they were making rice and beans. I know the Dutch oven type thing that they use to make their rice and beans has a nice coat of paint on the outside. I tested the paint, it came up positive for lead.
Wow.
And this is what they use to make their rice every day.
So wait, so when that happens and the oven's heating up, is it getting in the food?
I don't know on the outside. I don't know what happened on the inside, because you just don't know how much paint was actually on the inside, because it was the Dutch oven was older than I am.
Right. Yeah.
So like I know, and I actually have it in my office because I didn't want them to take it. So
you stole their oven, Rodney?
It's a Dutch oven. It's a little.
Rodney, you left with the oven? The antique oven that they make the rice in?
Listen, they making their rice. I told them that here's a choice. You can either get rid of it or give it to me.
So they gave it to you.
Rice. They gave it to me. I'd rather have it. I'd rather have it this way. I can know. This way I know where it is, and this way I know they're not using it.
Oh, you're a nice person.
Thank you.
Did you at least supply them with another oven?
No, I couldn't.
No, okay, just took the oven, and they have no oven now.
I just said I'll take that. More so because if it stayed in the house, they were going to use it to make their rice.
Right. No, I understand. I thought that was very lovely.
So
did you bring it back on the plane?
No, this was here.
Oh, this was here. I thought you were in Puerto Rico. Okay.
No.
Oh, so it's here. Okay.
No, this was here.
So you just drove it back down the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually walked it down because they were right around the corner from my office. So.
Oh, okay. Well, tell them I said hello. So if we suspect that something's going on where we need to get, lead paint tested, we're in the Meriden area, we contact your office?
It depends. If you have a child under the age of 6, I can definitely go out there and do the investigation, do the visual inspection, as well as the dust wipes. If you don't have a child, as a courtesy, I've been going out and talking to whether it's real estate agents, whether it's people trying to buy a house, just giving them some information. I don't have a problem doing that because it's going to solve, I'm going to have fewer problems in the future if I get them right up front and tell them, well, this is going to be positive. This more likely is going to be positive. If you maintain this, you'll never have to see me again.
Right. Okay.
That's the ultimate goal. If you're in Meriden and you're buying a home and you want to get it tested specifically for lead, you have to go to an independent company and get lead tested.
Okay. So what is your website so we can get some more information on this?
I'm gonna ask the question. It's gonna be Meriden.
It's okay. Just Google it, Rodney. Like you did
City
the asbestos.
Yeah, City of Meriden.
The City of Meriden?
Yeah.
Their website?
Yeah, just go to the City of Meriden website and look for environmental health.
Okay.
And it's going to give you information about everything that we do here at the environmental health, whether it's food service, whether it's pools, so on and so forth. And it has some information about lead. And I know my health director; she's putting stuff online as well on Facebook and things like that.
That's
so there
great.
are ways. There's always ways to find information about lead. And like I said, if you have a child under the age of 6 and you're living at home and you're questioning, you see paint chips, you see something, I have no problem going out there, making an appointment and going out there.
Well, thank you so much, Rodney Delgado from the Meriden Health Department, talking to us today about lead poisoning prevention, which actually turned out to be